Hi everyone, it's Kayla, and I don't have my glasses on today. Look! Eyes! Anyway, today we're discussing Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. I don't know. I feel bad for butchering her name, but it's Ng is her last name. But I love the first name, Celeste. Like, after I read that, I was like, if I had kids, like, I'd name a girl Celeste. That's really pretty. This is what we're discussing today. If you've never read this book, basically it's about how a family copes with the loss of a daughter, and they don't realize how they lost her, and it's really about family relationships and how we can really misconceive each other and the struggles that a family goes through, and kind of also what happens when you pick favorites in a family and idealize certain children or certain members of the family over others. So that's really all I can tell you. I went into this book thinking it was Gone Girl sort of esque story, because the first page says Lydia is dead, but they don't know this yet. And that was super suspenseful, so I was like, ooh, this could be like Gone Girl or The Girl on the Train. It's not. Just going into it, if you think it's like a suspense thriller, it's really not. It's more like a book about family and everything. But that's all I can really tell you without spoiling. So if you haven't read it, I would leave now and then come back and watch this once you have read it. Okay, so as I said, I really thought this book was going to be like Gone Girl, and so I was kind of let down by it. And it's totally my fault because I totally thought it was a different genre than it actually was. I did enjoy this book. I think I would give it more like a B, though. It was like cute, but it wasn't action-packed, which is how I like my books, is action-packed, and I was a little bored with it throughout the whole way. This has been sitting on my shelf for probably about a year now. I gotten it because I liked the cover a lot, and it was like $5 at a used bookstore, so I had gotten it, and I was like, okay, I really need to read that. So I finally read it, and it was good. It just wasn't what I thought it would be, which I think upset my expectations a little bit. But we have Lydia, and she's this girl who her parents demand so much out of her, and they're both trying to like live out their lives with their children. I really didn't like their parents. James, I think, and Louisa, that's their names, and I didn't like either of them. I liked how Louisa was very like empowered and how she was like the only girl in a lot of her classes, but she had to give up that dream when she got pregnant. She couldn't continue that being pregnant. She couldn't like have her baby in the middle of like the semester. So she has to give up this dream that she's always had of going to Harvard or whatever, being a doctor. And so when Lydia is born, Lydia becomes that vessel for her to live out that dream without actually having to do it herself and getting her daughter to do it for her. And that's so sad. And I was just like, reading it, you're like, oh my gosh, how do you not realize this? And I know in like real life, obviously not real life, but I'm sure that her parents just thought that like they just wanted to give her what was best for her, but like that was what was best for them, not for her. So Lydia, this whole time, I was trying to figure out who killed her, because again, I thought it was like Gone Girl. And so we have her dad, James, who goes into sleeping with his little assistant, which, we'll talk about that. And then we have Nath, who had gotten mad at her, like, at different points. At first, I thought it was Nath for a second, because he talked about how their parents were always very partial to Lydia, and I'm like, maybe he was jealous. And then I thought it was Jack for a little bit, but because Nath always thought that it was Jack that had killed her, I instantly was like, okay, it's not Jack, because it's never who we think it is. And then it turns out that it was suicide, which I don't know if when she went into that lake, she really thought that she'd resurface, and she really just had this mindset, like, someone will be here to get me, or if she just knew that, like, her starting over point, like, starting over with each of her family members, starting her life her own way, was really in death, and she could give them what they wanted in death because they would realize all the stuff that they had fantasized, that like idealized her as a daughter to be, wasn't actually what she was. I felt so bad throughout this book for Hannah. She is just, even as you're reading it, she strays far from your mind until you get with her point of view. She's really not central in the family. Her parents don't really even realize that she's there half the time. And the only time that Louisa actually shows care to Hannah is at the like very end when she realizes that like she sort of tried to live out her dream through her daughter, and like she feels so bad about it, and Hannah is there, and her mom just opens her arms and Hannah runs into them, and I'm like, that's so awful that like you're not even there for your daughter until your other one's gone. So we have Nath, who is going to Harvard, and his sister is just so bent up about it because he is her only escape. He understands like the pressures that they put on Lydia, and she can always just go to him and then he'll make a joke about it and it'll make her feel better, and she realizes that since she's leaving, she's not going to have that outlet anymore. I really thought Jack could have been that outlet. Like, I know he might not understand everything totally with it, but she could just talk to him about it and relieve her stress and then call Nath sometimes. But Nath is going to college, and I don't think he realizes how much of a vessel he is for Lydia. And I'm not saying that, like, at some point Lydia's going to have to learn to just either confront her parents about it or just deal with it and just keep going until she gets out of there and can leave. And I think it is a lot to put on Nath. I think he might have felt like he's the reason that she committed suicide because he wasn't there for her. But it's not his fault. He was there for her a lot, but he can't just sit there and be her vessel forever. She was going to have to face the facts at some point, in my opinion. So, James, I really didn't like his character. At first, I did because he seemed like a really cool dad. He was always really fun and everything, but then whenever Louisa leaves, he is so mean. When he slaps Nath, I was just like done, and he is mad at his son for being like the nerd that he was, which is awful. And Nath is sort of his Lydia. Like, Louisa is to Lydia as James is to Nath. And he just slaps his son because he really likes space and astronauts, and that's what he's going to college for. Like, he's getting a good degree from it, so there's nothing wrong with that at all. Then we have him, and whenever he was getting food out of his assistant's hair, I already forgot her name, but when he's doing that in the very beginning of the book, I was like, ooh, I bet he killed Lydia, because somehow, like, she posed a threat to, I don't know, but they're not actually having the affair at that point, but they do have an affair later on, and Nath definitely knows it, and whenever Louis says, like, where's your dad, like, he hasn't come back, and Nath's like, I think I know where he is, and man, I hate that he did that. And I know that at the end of the book, he's like, yeah, I'm home, like, I'm staying, I'm not doing that again. But I was like, I don't care. You shouldn't have done that. That's just no. And I think that's just how he was dealing with his grief, but it was a really perverse way of doing it, and that's awful. But overall, we just really saw how this family was, and through Lydia and her story of just all this pressure that she feels and the idealist family that she has, we just saw how she dealt with it, which was a really sad way, and we just saw the effect that it can have on a family, and as they all realized that there's so much that she didn't actually tell them, and it was a good book. It just wasn't what I expected it to be, but I know that was a really short book review, but that's about all I have for you guys today. I thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye!